It's a BumbleKast Mini, sponsored by Twilight.
Before we begin, thank you for course-correcting Tails. Barring the immense bias caused by naming my dog Shadow, Tails has always been my joint favorite. In short, expect me to gush. Tails has some great moments across the games. Some of them are very well known and well regarded. You've added some very nice content to that catalog. I feel like your decision for Tails really resonates with my favorite underrated Tails moment. In Shadow the Hedgehog, we find Tails helping to defend world leaders, even while fighting his little heart out and being a total badass, the equal of any other. He will still humbly confess to an ally as Shadow, "I've always thought sunsets were beautiful, but I'm afraid of nightfall tonight." What are your favorite underrated Tails moments that have crystallized in your mind, and how do they inform your image of Tails?
I don't know about underrated, but...
Wow, my head's spinning. Look at all those Eggman's robots.
When he's confronting Eggman in the end of his story in SA1.
Yeah.
And I maybe it's just me, but I feel like Eggman's line reads are much more sinister in Tails's arc. And, you know,
I mean, Dean Bristow Eggman was just kind of much more sinister in a lot of ways.
Yeah. But But at least in my mind, I remember when he attacks in the Egg Hornet. In Sonic's campaign, he sounds a little more, goofy Eggman. But in Tails' campaign, he actually sounds kind of threatening. And I'm wondering if that was intentional to show Tails' youth and fear and growing up through it throughout his arc. So that, when he's confronted with the Egg Walker, and it's like, well, Sonic ain't here. It's up to me. Oh boy. I don't know. That was his big moment. And
yeah,
that kind of carried over into SA2 and then didn't. So to me, that kind of put the pin on the board. It's like, this is what he can do when he's backed into a corner. This is what he aspires towards. Let's get back to that point.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to go all the way back to his first appearance, Sonic 2, and just, him seeing Sonic falling out of the sky and being like, oh crap, I got to save him. So he hops into the tornado that he's repaired with new rockets attached to the bottom of it and blasts his way up there and saves his friend. He's the hero. He's the ultimate hero in that game because he saved Sonic. Sonic was plummeting to Earth and would have died, but Tails caught him. So yeah, that established Tails, I think, is like, yes, Tails is the good boy. There's an old concept in the fandom about Tails potentially being a kitsune. You've stated that it isn't the case, but that just means we can get dumber in our questions about the hypothetical. If at 100 Tails, Tails rejuvenated back to his prime and grew a tail, how would everyone react?
I'm presuming anybody was still left. I mean,
100
don't
years
know what the average lifespan is for most folks, but I would imagine most of the cast were well past their prime and gone. Shadow wouldn't care, It's like, Shadow, I'm back to being a child and I have a third tail and I'm slightly more powerful. Fine. What do you want? Congratulations, you didn't die. So what? If Omega's still functioning, he doesn't care. He's still hunting for Eggman robots.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, if Cheese or Chocola are still around because they've been raised properly and are light chow now, they might give him a round of applause.
Yay.
General might be around, maybe. He would want to spar. He wants to know what three tails can do.
That would be fun.
But we're kind of running short on people who might still be around.
Tails will just meet up with Silver eventually if he keeps this up.
Assuming Silver, does go back to his own time or something. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, Tails is there. And then Silver goes back in time, sees Tails again, and is like, oh, Tails, wow, what happened? Where's the rest of your tails? Tails will be like, what?
Silver just shows up someday and he's getting funny looks. You look so weird with just two tails. What do you mean just?
Uh-oh. Tails has had games of his own with some really cool villains. Let's talk about which card first. It is problematic to treat Christian lore about witches as true, and I have very close and loving relationships with multiple real-life witches who I don't want to insult. However, assuming Witchcart does play to that Christian take on witches, how would you set up a more Sonic version of a demonic patron for Witchcart?
I wouldn't go there.
Nah.
They already danced around that with like Iblis and Ephesus and such, and that was arguably atonal with the franchise. And with this latest pass at Witchcart, she's just a cartoon goofy witch. There's no greater thinking behind the magics. It's just she's got a crystal wand. That's about it. And that's all I think she really needs.
Wow, Ian, that is a really cool concept. At least I assume it was. I don't know how you approached it because I'm not writing these in real time. But you've thoroughly earned the assumption of good work. Okay. How would you approach a story to introduce the concept of her patron or prevent its introduction if you're feeling feisty?
I mean, I would make a stronger counter argument if this idea was broached on an official level. Like, we're thinking of, bringing in Beelzebub, the demon. He's going to be a good friend to Witchcart. Be like, maybe not. Can we not do that at all? Block that back, please. No. But we'll cross that bridge if we come to it. I don't think we will.
Nah, let's try to not go there necessarily. Now on to the other major part of Tales' Rogues Gallery, the Battle Cuckoos. In terms of non-Eggman Darkseid factions, they're probably one of the easiest two for squeezing more juice out of, at least in my opinion. If the Battle Cuckoos had won, and then somehow overtaken Eggman as the main villain of the franchise, how would you most like to see them have gotten entangled with things like Perfect Chaos, Dark Gaia, Shadow, and the Deadly Six? Or coping with things like Gun, the Black Arms, or Eggman finding the Phantom Ruby?
I imagine it would hit a lot of the similar narrative beats. They're power-hungry warmongers.
Yeah.
So, maybe Dr. Fukurakov did some research and found the stone tablets that leads them to Angel Island and unleashing chaos. I imagine that the Grand Battle Cuckoo wouldn't be particularly enticed with the idea of a monster. He's more, at least in my mind, he's more about living by your own strength, not relying on some eldritch creature. But Fukurakov is like, no, I can make this work. And then after that completely goes to hell in a handbasket, we fast forward to Unleashed. It's like, look, I know the whole chaos thing didn't work out, but I now have these Gaia manuscripts. No, hear me out. If we blow up the planet, we'll be the only ones who can fly between the continental pieces. Yeah? Flying? You like that, boss? Yes?
Well, I mean, sure, why not? We like flying.
I mean, I could see them like maybe going after Shadow as thinking he's a weapon. And then, with the promise of a space-based doom laser, I could see Battle Cuckoo being on top of that. Yeah, big space gun, I likey. But like Deadly Six, I don't know, unless they had to like make port on Lost Hex for whatever reason. But they wouldn't I don't see them actively seeking it out or trying to recruit the Zeti. I think by that point, Dr. Fukurakov's, let's use some other ancient power would have run itself dry as far as the Grand Cuckoo's concerned. What if we got this thing called the Coffin Conk? Okay, I'll go back to my room. I mean, Gun would just be an adversary for them to shoot at in the sky. The Black Arm, same deal. You try to invade their airspace, they're going to make sure you land hard.
Mm-hmm. Nice. I like it. The association of Battle Cuckoos with the ancient Babylonians is really interesting. It definitely seems to be the natural implications of the lore on both. The Battle Cuckoo definitely seem like the type who would enjoy holding their glorious past over humans and other non-avian normies. Not a new idea to you, to be fair. If you were to write a Rogues side story for a future Sonic writers that held up a lens to the Great Battle Cuckoo, adjacent bad vibes in their fanbase, how would you approach it?
I think that might be a solid central antagonist to a new writer's game. The Battlebird Armada is after the Babylonian MacGuffin of infinite power, and Team Sonic is there to, stop them.
Mm-hmm.
Don't use the MacGuffin for the bad thing. I will use the MacGuffin for the bad thing. Oh no, they're going to use the MacGuffin for the bad thing. I mean, it's very basic, but it's a freaking racing game. It doesn't need a strong narrative.
Says you. Yeah, you're right.
Whereas the Babylonians would have the more interesting side story, which they always do in proud rioters tradition, of having some claim to that heritage themselves, but also not wanting to be part of the empire, our armada group,
Yeah,
and running counter to them while also not being buddy with Team Sonic. They're just happening to cross paths with similar goals. And then when you have the inevitable final race thing with some kind of crazy psychedelic changing stage, Grand Battle Cuckoo's got the MacGuffin of infinite power and is going full god mode. You race him down, you beat him up. And then said relic is put in a museum, or it's run out of power, or it has been narratively neutered so that it is no longer a lingering issue. And the rogues continue to fly free and do their own thing, and Team Sonic has saved the day, and the Battlebirds have been thwarted once more, and everybody gets lattes or something. I don't know. It's a racing game. It doesn't need to have a strong narrative.
Why not? It could. Just because it doesn't need one doesn't mean you can't give it one, Ian. Come on.
I don't know. Personally, I feel like I think the racing game should just be racing games.
Yeah.
They don't need a story. They've never been the greatest. Just race.
If you're not going to put a time and money and budget into a decent story for your racing game, then yeah, it's not worth it.
Like, save that budget for more tracks and more racers,
Yeah, pretty much. To the best of my knowledge, we haven't really seen the Battle Cuckoo Armada or Witchcart and her followers in the games since Tails dealt with them. Given that many individuals being disappeared by Tails, and the Black Arms being a hive mind, I do think I should check. Has there been an off-screen moment where Shadow brought up destroying the Black Comet to sound threatening, only for Tails to look him dead in the eyes and say, that only counts as one?
I mean, that would be funny.
Mm-hmm.
I get the reference.
It'd be pretty good. Pretty good. Dark and edgy Tails is always fun. I think a lot of us have quickly fallen in love with 9. Unfortunately, it's probably not wise to ask your questions about 9, so let's just do a rapid fire of a different adoption outcomes for Tails. Some of these require changing when he was born, but just assume he otherwise got to escape the same bullying at the same age. Rapid fire round. What if Tails were adopted by Knuckles, Rouge, Vanilla, Pachacamic, Silver, Gerald, Blaze, Witchcart, the Commander, Jet, SBO, and Vector, Big, the Mario Brothers, Dr. Light, or for some reason the Great Battle Cuckoo? I'm leaving Shadow himself off this list just in case he gets any powerful moments with 9.
Ooh, all right, rapid fire answers.
Yep, make it quick.
Knuckles, he becomes a kind of tough guy protege. He has a very similar dynamic to Sonic in that he's the brains of the outfit, the one who looks before he leaps. But he would be the one upgrading all the booby traps across the island so that when Sonic eventually got there, he'd be in some serious trouble.
Oh, boy.
Rouge sees a lot of potential in the kid. He's got a real way with machines, and he's very eager to please, so they can break into all sorts of stuff that she might actually have to take a few minutes to figure out. He can just disarm whatever alarms. Hot diggity. He can fly too. Do you know how many grids do not take flight into account? They're going to rob this world blind. Vanilla comes home one day and introduces Cream to her new adoptive, slightly older brother. It is wholesome and they live happily ever after.
The end.
Pachacamac only kept him because Tikal said it was a good idea. And he's like, fine, but you have to take care of him.
Yeah.
Silver really doesn't know what he's doing. They'll fine. I mean, it's kind of lonely jumping through various timelines. Sure, he can come along and get a little bit of the Sonic and Tails dynamic again here. Tails is the one who's doing research. Tails is the one who's putting context into whatever region they're in and does proper reconnaissance. And kind of tells Silver, maybe don't go after that guy. I don't think he's the Iblis Stricker. Gerald nurtures him and is very nice and raises him to be a polite young boy, and they create all sorts of neat experiments, and they decide to make Shadow a hedgehog because Tails, for some reason, just thinks they're neat. And then, much later, a gun soldier comes back with a very large pelt.
No! No!
Blaze is a bit standoffish. She isn't really the type to adopt people, but she can't just leave this kid out by himself. And he proves himself to be a stalwart companion and very smart and insightful, and they kind of bounce off each other mentally, and he's able to help her get over her fear of heights, and he builds boats that can go places so she can blow up robots, and they become a power duo.
Heck yeah.
Witchcart brainwashes the small child, becomes her eternal attendant, fixing her various go-karts. Or, not go-karts, minecarts.
Minecarts, yes.
There's carts of a variety. He becomes the garage technician for the entire gang.
Whatever carts there are, he'll fix them. Go-karts, mine carts, shopping carts. He's on it.
The commander, I don't know, gets him a collar, make sure he gets brushies, takes him to the groomer once a month. Oh, God, this thing can talk?
Oh, no.
Jet inducts him into the gang, eternally browbeats him for being this freak who can fly with his butt. If you're going to fly, stay on a board. Do it the proper way. Also, you're now Wave's, protege. You help in the garage. No, don't speak up. No, don't talk about potential design ideas. Just do as you're told. Also, Tails is now acting as a walking coaster for anything that Storm is drinking. SB and Vector, they introduce Charmy to his new adopted older brother. It is wholesome, and they live happily ever after. Big teaches him how to fish. And they just kind of chill out and they fish for the rest of their lives. It's wholesome, and they live happily ever after.
Oh, the good end.
The Mario Brothers reach out, take his hand. Suddenly they get Tanuki suits, and or not Tanuki suits. What's the fox suit called? Is it a kitsune? Is it a kitsune suit?
I guess. I mean, it's a raccoon
Luigi
suit.
gets that.
It's a Tanuki suit.
And I know Luigi got a fox costume later.
Maybe.
Point is, Tails becomes a power-up. They wear his skin. They defeat Bowser. Dr. Light is fascinated by this strange mutant creature. He takes him in and introduces rock and roll to their new adoptive kind of alter species brother. It's wholesome, and they live happily ever after. And a great battle cuckoo. He's like, ew, and throws him out the airlock.
Well, there you go. I am curious how you would have Tails deal with this cliche heroic problem. If it helps to visualize, we can say he gets 2 WhatsApp messages due to the slanderous product placement being paid for by Telegram. Let's say it's an impersonal, pragmatic badass like Blaze, Gemerald, or Shadow admitting they need him specifically for the village, and someone emotionally invested like Amy, Cosmo, or Tom begging him to help Sonic. The key points are he has to be fast, and Sonic can't contact him to take the burden off him the way Cosmo did in Sonic X. If both Sonic and a villager were in danger and Tails had to choose, with no third option and no main character morality for Sonic, what would he do, and how would he live with it?
Well, if it's a matter of Sonic is in peril or a village is in peril, he's going to go for the village. Like, he'll worry for Sonic, but he has faith that Sonic would be able to take care of himself. Even if it's a dire situation, he has faith that his mentor, big brother, partner, whatever you want to say, will get out of said jam. Or at least hold his own until Tails can double back and help him. And he knows Sonic would not want him to forsake anybody else on his account. So it would not really be a hard choice for him.
It's wholesome and they live happily ever after. No. Time for the coveted Digimon question. The training never ends. We have previously discussed a potential partner for Tails. You chose a meek Monetamon who would evolve into High Vision Monetamon, who you didn't know existed but described perfectly. They would achieve this with support from Tails, the way Tails metaphorically has evolved with Sonic support. In Digimon, there have been many approaches to evolution. It's a Tamagotchi spin-off that somehow became famous for great narrative works. Of course there are. But one of the most popular baseline patterns for them to base things off is Champion, Ultimate, or Mega. And he goes into explaining those, but I won't read that whole thing here. Pretty simple and traditional way to do a character drum, I suppose, but that just means that you have a lot of room to twist and explore it. So how would you take your basic idea for a Tails partner through your own twist on achieving those levels?
Let's see. I don't remember exactly how we got from one to the other, but we're assuming that High Vision Monetamon, man, that's a mouthful, has graduated to like comparable partner status to Tails, I guess, at this point. So let's see here. Champion would be when we're going to call him High Vi, because I'm not reading that whole name every time. High Vi, steps up to the occasion. He's been at Tails' side for a few adventures. Now Tails is, I don't know, chained up and falling into the meat grinder, so High Vi steps up and rescues Tails. He does the big hero thing, and Digimon, digital monsters, and boom, swirly CG, he's a champion now. Which is that just Champion High Vision Monetamon, or is that got another name?
Just be High V. High V, like the grocery store.
And then let's see. I mean, going by the descriptions here, I'm not seeing a huge narrative difference between the champion and ultimate benchmarks, but I don't know. In this imaginary narrative, Tails has broken out on his own. He's become his own independent, cool dude, franchise-carrying main protagonist. And High Vi's along with him, and again, where's the real difference between this and Champion? I guess they have a very cool tag team 2-character final boss fight side by side. Not just Tails, but High Vi's there with him. Super Tails and Ultimate. Well, no, I guess not, because Mega seems to be the Super Saiyan form here. So that would be the finale to all this. Mega High Vi. And he is flying alongside Super Tails as they defeat the great space face eater of infinite doom and peril.
Oh, my favorite face eater.
That classic. But I'm not really seeing the difference between Champion and Ultimate in terms of narrative steps, but that's my ignorance speaking more than anything else.
Alrighty. Well, I guess there's a question for me, but I think I've already technically answered it, but sure, we'll humor this one.
Okay. Just Twilight had a specification, and
yeah,
it still seems like the same gravy to me, but
Yummy.
Moving on. And now Twilight has a question for you, Kyle.
Hit me.
I usually try to ask you a different question from Ian, but please indulge me asking you the same question I asked him earlier. What is your favorite underrated Tails moment?
We already talked about this. It's Sonic 2, going all the way back to the beginning. Nobody talks about that anymore, really. I mean, it's Sonic 2.
They really don't. That would be an underrated moment. Yeah.
But yeah. I think it's one that people don't really talk about anymore, but I think it's a good moment. It establishes Tails as a character who's technologically capable. Not really a thing we saw explored too much in that era, but it did sort of establish that. And apparently a great pilot and a hero who saved Sonic. Sonic was going to die. But
unless you have the good ending and he's supersonic and flying by himself.
Well,
but it's the thought that counts.
You know what, Ian?
He showed the hustle. He showed the initiative. He got up there.
You know what? Yeah, you're right. All right. Well, here we are. We're at the end now. This is the last one. All right. So apparently the next one from Twilord, he's already made the decision. We don't have to decide what we're going to talk about with Twilord's next mini. So, change of plans to the usual end of meeting business. In response to someone wanting to know how Ian would write a Digimon comic, I'm going to do another special episode which just walks you through the key tropes for writing a Digimon narrative. How excited are you for your very own assembled Digimon narrative starter kit?
It will be interesting to go through, I'm sure, at the very least.
Digimon, digital monsters. Digimon is real popular. All right, that's it.
Thank you to Twilo for sponsoring this BumbleKast Mini. If you want one of your own, head over to patreon.com/BumbleKast, Ko-fi.com/BumbleKast, or become a YouTube member.
See you in the next one.